Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Oh, absolutely. Always up for a good deep dive.
Well, today we're going to be diving into something that I think is universally relatable. Um, Caring for loved ones. We've got some fascinating research lined up, some personal stories. Should be interesting to see what we discover.
I'm really interested to dig into this whole idea of a positive feedback loop with caregiving.
Oh,
Like,
well,
how does caring for others actually benefit the giver? I think there's a lot to unpack there.
yeah, for sure. And you know what? That actually connects really well with something that uh, the source material really emphasizes, which is like the why behind caring. Like, why does it even matter? Why
Right.
bother?
Yeah.
And it goes beyond just like building trust and security, which are obviously important.
Source. Yeah.
Um, but there's this one quote that really stuck with me. It said, caring for another is an act of profound strength and resilience.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
I mean, it kind of changes the whole perspective on it,
Uh,
right? It's not just about being like nice or whatever.
right.
It's about making a choice to strengthen the relationship, even when it's hard.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And, sometimes those acts of caring are big,
Right.
like really obvious things.
Yeah.
But the source material also highlights the power of small gestures. And
Mhm.
they actually shared this really touching story that I think illustrates this perfectly.
Okay.
Let's take a listen.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay.
Wow.
I know, right?
That really puts things in perspective.
It does.
Yeah,
It makes you realize how much even just like a small gesture
totally.
can really impact someone.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because the source material actually links these small acts of care to like actual health benefits.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so apparently both the giver and the receiver, they experience lower stress levels, better mental well-being.
Really?
Yeah, it's like this two-way street of support.
That's so
It's
cool.
pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, and I think that's where this whole idea of a support system comes into play.
Yeah.
Like when you care for others, you're not just like helping them, you're
Right.
actually strengthening those bonds that give you that sense of belonging and connection, which we need.
Absolutely, yeah. And you know what, speaking of strengthening bonds, um, the source material then goes on to give some really practical advice
Okay.
on how to make, you know, caring for loved ones like a more intentional part of our life,
Mm.
which I thought was really cool. It's like a toolkit
Oh,
almost.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me the tools.
You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you ready to dive into that a little bit?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, so tip number one is all about regular check-ins, which sounds simple enough, right?
Right?
But I think in our busy lives, it's so easy to just get caught up in our own worlds
Oh, yeah.
and everything going on. And so it's, a quick text, a phone call, even, a thoughtful emoji or something like that. It can go such a long way in just letting someone know that you're thinking about them, right?
Yeah. And you know what I find interesting about that is that it really emphasizes the consistency, I think.
Oh, yeah.
It's not about like those grand gestures, like, every
Yeah.
once in a while, it's like,
It's the little things.
the little things, yeah, like woven into, the fabric of your
It's
relationship.
it's like your daily vitamins for your relationships or something.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, exactly.
Okay, good.
Building on that, then, the next one is they talk about quality time.
Okay.
But it's not just like
Yeah.
any quality time. This has to be like non-negotiable quality time.
Oh.
We're talking like those dedicated moments,
Yeah.
like, whatever it is, whether it's a weekly dinner,
Yeah.
a walk in a park,
Yeah.
10 minutes of like truly uninterrupted conversation before bed.
It's like drawing a circle around that time and saying like, nope, the world can wait.
Yes.
Right. Precisely.
Yeah.
That's such a good way to put it. Yeah. And speaking of being present, right? Like the next tip that they talk about is active listening,
Oh, yeah.
which again, we all think we do it, but how often are we like truly present and engaged in a conversation?
It's so true.
Right?
Yeah, no, you're so right.
Without like letting our own thoughts and to-do lists
What
like
thought? Yes.
crowd ins.
It's so true. Like sometimes I think the most caring thing we can do is actually just like silence our own inner monologue,
Yes.
and really be there for that person in that moment.
100%. And the source material makes such a good point about how, that active listening,
Yeah.
it actually creates a safe space for
Going into
vulnerability.
Yeah.
Because when someone feels like heard and understood, then it helps them process their emotions, feel supported, even if like nothing about the situation actually changes.
It's like holding up a mirror to their feelings,
Yes.
validating their experience.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes that validation is like, worth more than 1,000 words of advice, honestly.
100%.
You know.
Yeah, yeah.
So then moving beyond just like the listening part, right?
Sure.
They talk about tangible support,
Okay.
which is those acts of
Oh,
service
yeah.
that actually like lighten the load for your loved ones.
Yeah.
So, and they're talking about like, practical help,
Yeah.
running errands, cooking a meal,
Yeah.
helping with like that dreaded chore.
Right, which could make such a difference.
Huge difference, especially when someone's feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, they talk about how it doesn't have to be like this big grand gesture.
Right.
It's often those small acts of service that really make the biggest impact.
Totally.
Like, bringing your loved one their favorite coffee in the morning or offering to like walk their dog when they're short on time.
Yeah, it's about paying attention to, like, what are those little things
Yes,
that you can do to either make their day a little brighter or make their load a little bit lighter?
exactly.
Right.
100%. And then finally, they highlight the importance of gratitude,
Right.
which, might seem kind of like,
Right.
well, duh. But they actually like go into this the science behind why gratitude is so powerful.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So, according to, the source material here, expressing gratitude, it doesn't just like make the recipient feel appreciated
Right.
and valued, which it does,
Yeah.
but it also has like a really positive impact on the giver.
Oh, wow.
So, like studies show that practicing gratitude can actually like rewire our brains
Wow.
to focus on the positive,
Wow, that's so cool.
which then leads to like increased happiness, stronger relationships, even improved physical health.
So it's not just about, like, being polite. It's actually
It's like
beneficial for everyone involved.
exactly. It's creating that virtuous cycle
Of-
of positivity and like well-being in our relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so it's like give and you shall receive, basically.
100%. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and what's cool is, like, it doesn't require, like, these big,
Right.
grandiose gestures or expensive gifts or anything like that. A simple thank you,
Yeah.
for a home-cooked meal or, a heartfelt note expressing appreciation for a listening ear. Like,
Right.
those
The little things.
those little things can go so far
Yeah.
in strengthening our bonds and creating that more positive emotional climate.
Yeah, it makes you realize that we often have everything we need
We do.
to make a difference in the lives of our loved ones.
We do.
We just have to be intentional about like using it.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
But I do have to say, like, it's very easy to hear all of this and then be like,
Right.
okay, but like life gets busy, you know?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
how so does the source material address that at all?
It does. Yeah. It acknowledges that life is,
Chaotic and we're not going to be perfect caregivers all the time. In
Right.
fact, it actually says that striving for perfection can actually be counterproductive.
oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So then what's the key?
Right.
Like how do we integrate this into our lives in a way that doesn't, like, add more stress to the mix?
Right. Well, that's where they emphasize it's not about doing everything perfectly.
Right.
It's about finding those small, sustainable ways
That
to
we're-
incorporate this caregiving into our routine.
Okay.
It's about choosing quality over quantity, consistency over, like, those big grand gestures.
Right.
Even 5 minutes of like truly focused attention is going to be more valuable than an hour of like distracted presence.
It's about being present in the small moments, not just planning, like an elaborate event or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, and then it actually goes on to share some really inspiring stories from people who are doing just that.
Oh, cool.
Finding creative and meaningful ways to weave caregiving into their everyday life, even amidst, the chaos.
Oh, I love that.
Okay.
Are you ready to hear about some of these people?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, let's hear about these real-life heroes then. Who's first?
So we've got Sarah. Sarah had a colleague going through like a tough divorce.
Yeah.
And, Sarah knew her colleague was feeling super overwhelmed. So she started leaving like encouraging notes and little gifts on her desk each week.
Oh, that's so nice.
Right.
It's just a small gesture, but I bet you it made her, like, whole week.
Exactly. And like, it didn't require like tons of time from Sarah.
Right. Yeah.
It's just this small but consistent
Okay.
thing. And Sarah actually said that she noticed like this ripple effect. Like it actually created like a more supportive atmosphere in the whole office.
It's amazing how these acts of caring kind of like radiate outward,
Totally.
like a wave of positivity.
Yes, exactly. And speaking of ripple effects,
Okay.
our next story comes from Michael.
Okay.
And Michael actually shared a really powerful example of how like even just a small act of kindness between strangers can have this like lasting impact.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm really interested to hear this one.
So Michael was going through like a really rough time. He had just lost his job and he was, feeling really down.
Right.
And he was at the grocery store one day and he was, feeling super stressed, overwhelmed.
No.
And the cashier just surprised him with this like genuine smile and a kind word.
Ah.
And Michael said, like, that interaction
Yeah.
completely turned his whole day around.
Wow.
Because it reminded him that, like, even in the midst of, tough times,
Yeah.
there's still, like, good in the world,
Right. Yeah. And that there are people out there who care.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's like, it's such a good reminder that, like, we truly never know
We don't.
the impact that our actions are going to have on others, Sometimes it's just a smile or a kind word.
That's all it takes.
That can be the most powerful gift.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And then our final story comes from Maria.
Yep.
And Maria learned like a really valuable lesson about the importance of consistency in caregiving.
Okay.
Especially with teenagers.
Ooh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Right.
They're a tough nut to crack sometimes.
So Maria's son was going through it, like,
Yeah.
withdrawing from the family, struggling in school, like
Fun.
the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, the teenage experience.
Right.
Yeah.
And Maria had tried like everything she could think of
Yeah.
to connect with him.
Right.
But nothing was like landing.
Yeah.
And then she had this realization
Yeah.
that instead of trying to like force these like big heart to hearts,
Right.
she needed to just like focus on showing up consistently
Okay.
in those small but meaningful ways.
Okay. I like that. So she like met him where he was at, kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Instead of like trying to, force him into her world or whatever.
100%, yeah. And so she started like, leaving like encouraging notes in his lunchbox.
Oh, I love that.
Right.
Yeah.
Made sure to be present like at his soccer games.
Yeah.
Even started like watching his favorite TV show with him, even though like she wasn't really into it.
Yeah.
And she said like over time those small acts of like consistent care and attention,
Yeah.
it like chipped away at the wall that he had, kind of built up.
Right.
Started opening up more.
Wow.
Their conversations became more meaningful and their bond grew stronger.
That's amazing. I love these stories. They're such a good reminder that we really do all have the capacity
We do.
to make such a difference
Absolutely.
in the lives of others. And it really doesn't require like these big, heroic efforts or anything.
Yeah.
It's really just about showing up with an open heart
100%.
and a willingness to care.
Yeah, and to do it consistently, Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's about
Show up authentically.
authentically, yes, and consistently.
Yes, I love it.
It's about like weaving those threads of care like into the very fabric
I love that.
of our relationships,
Yeah.
so that we can like create this tapestry of love and support that will like, sustain us through all the ups and downs.
Yeah, absolutely. Through thick and thin.
Exactly.
This has been such a great conversation.
It has.
I always love chatting with you.
Likewise.
But this has been a really good one.
This was a good one.
I feel very inspired
Me too.
to put some of this stuff into practice.
Absolutely. You know what they say, knowledge is power,
Yes.
but only when it's put into action.
100%. Okay, so to our listener out there, we want to leave you with this. What small act of care will you choose today? Remember, even the smallest gesture can have that ripple effect. And it might be the thing that makes someone's day, so go out there and be kind, nurture those connections, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
Yes, spread the love.